Hi, how are you? I'm Anthony from Cypher House, and today I'm back with another installment of Maze-tober. If you missed the first Maze-tober video, I'm visiting a different corn maze every weekend in October, and I'm analyzing the different design philosophies that went into making those mazes to learn something about puzzle design. Today's corn maze started out with a bit of a mistake on my part. So we're right down the street from what was supposed to be today's corn maze, and we just learned that this particular corn maze isn't open on Sundays. I just kind of took it for granted that all of them would be open on Sundays. Yeah, so after driving an hour and a half, we had to scramble to find a corn maze that was actually open. And since we were doing the research last minute, I didn't really have time to check if this maze was going to be a good fit for this series. Luckily for me, we found Seyfert's corn maze. We're here today at Seyfert's farm in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. Here they have a 14-acre corn maze, which makes it one of the biggest corn mazes around, according to the website. The price of admissions is $10 a person, and unlike some of the other corn mazes that we're visiting in this series, Liz and I have actually never been to this particular corn maze before, so this is going to be an interesting one. I'm excited to see what this one's like. When we pulled into Seyfert's corn maze, we were immediately greeted by, well, corn. So from the parking lot, we're immediately greeted with a field of corn, actually on all sides of us. Like, it's over there, it's over there. All that I can see so far is this area over here where it looks like we buy tickets. So I think that's where we start off. So we bought our tickets and continued on to see the rest of Seyfert's. So behind the place where you buy tickets, there's a fun zone area. There's like a tug of war. Liz, we should do tug of war. So before we entered the corn maze, Liz and I got a little distracted. What is barnyard foosball?
Oh, it's human foosball.
Yeah, it's just human foosball. You just hold on to these ropes. I'd have to hold on to this. Kick! I did it! Liz wants to know how tall she is. Yeah, you're like 4 feet 6 inches.
I am not.
After having some fun in the barnyard, Liz and I realized that we needed to warm up our thinking muscles before entering the large maze. So I think before we go in the big corn maze, we're going to check out the junior corn maze just off to the side. Let's see how long it takes us to get through here. And we just made it out of the junior corn maze. It took us about 4 minutes. With the junior corn maze out of the way, we felt ready to tackle the big maze. As you navigate through the maze, there are 10 checkpoints. Each checkpoint has a question with multiple choice answers that you can access through your smartphone. If the right answer is chosen, you will advance through the maze in the correct direction. If you choose wrong, you will find a dead end or head in the wrong direction. Follow these steps to begin. Oh, that's interesting. Haven't done one like that before. Now, this was the first time that I had done a corn maze that implemented smartphone technology, so I was excited to see how this technology would be interwoven into the maze's design. So when we scan this QR code, it gives us a number of options that we can choose for our trivia questions. Okay, so Liz decided to pick the movies from the 2010 category, and I went with US history, so we're gonna see which of us knows more about our respective categories. We also learned that the app had a map of the maze accessible on it, but we decided we weren't going to look at that map at all while we were in the maze. And into the maze we go. Only one path to start out, so that's cool. Okay, so we're not very far into the maze, and we found what looks like checkpoint station 1. So we can either enter in this 5-digit number or scan the QR code to get our first trivia questions. It was now time for us to rack our brains over some of the most intense trivia questions known to mankind. So my first trivia question is, who was the first president of the United States? And as we all know, it was John Quincy Adams, right, Liz? Just kidding, it's George Washington. Liz, what question did you get?
What 2010 movie featuring Leonardo DiCaprio occurred in the surreal world of dreams?
So each of the trivia question options comes with an arrow. I assume those are directions relative to the sign that we're looking at. So the correct answer for both of us in this case was pointed off to the left. So I assume from this sign, we need to make a left to get to the next one. Feeling confident in our trivia answers, we headed off in the direction that they told us to go. But then we realized that this maze might be a bit more complicated than we had initially given it credit for. So we're quickly discovering that even though the signs point us in the general direction of the next station, there are still a lot of choices and options on where to go next. So we haven't found station 2 yet, and we're quite a ways away from station 1. Like, I'm not entirely sure I could find my way back from station 1 at this point. So we're just kind of winging it, and we're going to see where we end up. Fortunately, we eventually found our way. Okay, we looped around quite a few times, but eventually we discovered the correct path to Station 2, so here we are. So our questions at Station 2 tell us that we need to go left again. So I guess we're going back down. We just came from this direction. I guess we're gonna go this way again and up the side. It was as we were searching for Station 3 that I began to realize exactly how Seyferts had designed their corn maze. So we've been doing like a lot of looping around into areas we've already been. This is kind of interesting actually, because unlike a number of other corn mazes where the goal is to find certain stations, this one feels like the first corn maze I might have been in, which is actually designed to like get out. Like, it seems we keep getting into little sections, little pockets of the maze, and we keep kind of looping around within that pocket of the maze. But there's only one path, one random branching offshoot of one of those loops that actually takes you into the next looping section that has a station in it. I can explain this a little bit better by showing you the map of Seyfert's corn maze. The first two stations of the maze were located about here and here. As you can see, while the first station gave us a rough idea of which direction to travel in, there are still many different paths that we could take and places that we could go wrong on our way over to Station 2. In the end, we had to find this one specific path that took us over towards Station 2. Alright, it looks like we successfully made it to what I assume is Station 3. Yes, there it is. I wonder if the whole maze is like this. So far it seems like 10 mini mazes, where you only know you're out of a maze when you get to the next station. While I didn't know it at the time, thinking of this giant corn maze as several mini corn mazes was actually a pretty good way to look at it. Here's the map of Seyfert's corn maze again, but this time I colored the various sections of the map differently so we can see that the big maze is actually made up of several smaller sections that each lead into the next through only a single path. The only way to get from the orange section to the yellow section is to go through this intersection here. It was around this point in time that Liz and I were beginning to discover another feature that made this maze somewhat unique. There's actually a pretty good sense of community in this particular corn maze. I think we've been stopped by more groups just looking to chat and like see how everybody's doing and what progress everybody's made than we have in any of the other mazes. So that's actually really fun. I didn't realize it at the time, but since the maze was composed of several looping sections that all doubled back on themselves, and since there was only ever one path to progress further into the maze, this made it likely that solvers would double back and encounter groups that they had already met once in the maze. In fact, from checkpoints 3 to about checkpoint 8, I'm pretty sure that Liz and I were going through the maze at about the same pace as two other groups, because we kept rounding corners and finding the same groups over and over and over again. We made it to Station 4, woo! Just found Station 5, which means I guess we're halfway-ish through the maze. We found half the stations. I don't think we're getting any better at it. We're just, becoming more okay with guessing wrong and trying another path. I gotta say, Station 6 is giving us quite a bit of a struggle. For most of the other ones, you would find out pretty quickly if your guess was right or wrong. But this one just kind of keeps leading us in giant circles, and we're not always immediately sure if we're right or wrong until much later when we realize we were wrong. I don't remember exactly which part of the maze we were in when I said that, but as we can see by looking at the map, some of the loops are indeed not trivial. Some of the loops like this one are pretty small, and you'll pretty quickly realize that no matter which path you take, you end up at the same location. But other loops, such as this one on the far side, are extremely long and winding, so it's pretty tough to figure out if you're doubling back on yourself, or if you're heading to somewhere new until you eventually realize that you're back at the same area you were already in. Fortunately, at this point, the maze started to ease up a little bit. Okay, so for a quick comparison, between stations 5 and 6, it took us like, I don't know, it felt like 20 minutes to get there. And then from station 6 to 7, it took us maybe 30 seconds. Like, we found station 7 immediately. We ended up getting turned around after 7. We wound up back at number 6, but then eventually we oriented ourselves and found 8. Yay! We just found station 9, which means we only have one station left to go, and then we can get ourselves out of this maze. Ooh! So with our 10 trivia questions answered, it was time to find the exit. We officially found all 10 stations, and now we just have to do, hopefully, just a couple more random guess loops, and then we'll find our way out of the maze. I feel like we're pretty close to the entrance. Liz and I just checked those 2 ways, so now we gotta check these 2 ways. Okay, I'll go this way. Bye, Liz! We'll hopefully meet back up just down here. Our paths did not meet up. Mine just kind of keeps going. Liz got the good path. Why does Liz always get the good path? What's around the corner? What's around the corner? It's the exit of the maze! We did it! Woo! It took us about an hour and 10 minutes to get through that maze with all of the checkpoints. Honestly, I had a lot of fun with this one. I think it's the first time I've seen a corn maze that incorporates smartphone technology with getting through the maze, so that's a really fun new experience for me. And after completing the maze, it was time to ask Liz what her favorite part of our trip had been. So Liz, what was your favorite part of visiting Seyfert Farm?
I think my favorite part has to be the fried pickles with the apple cider.
And with that, I'm gonna pass it back to Little Anthony. Back to you, Little Anthony. Well, thank you, Bigger Anthony. So let's talk about a few design features of Seyfert's corn maze that might teach us something about how to make great puzzles. Once again, we see the role that innovation can play when altering a previously established puzzle type. Seyfert's brought corn maze solving into the 21st century by implementing smartphone technology as part of the corn maze solving. When designing a lengthy puzzle, it's important to build in some reassurances that the solver is on the right path. Otherwise, the puzzle might feel too much like a slog, or the puzzle solver might not be sure if they're actually making any progress until they finally get to the end. Seyfert's included stations at very strategic parts of the maze to let solvers know that they were on the right path and that they should keep going. We learned from this corn maze design that if somebody wants to create a longer or tougher puzzle-solving experience, one potential way to do that is to stack a number of smaller, easier puzzles on top of each other. While it's likely that the solver's going to get stuck on at least one of these mini sub-puzzles, it's just as likely that the solver will be able to quickly figure out one or two of the other subsections. Great puzzle design is about balancing those moments where the solver feels stuck and unable to continue with those moments where the solver feels like an absolute genius. Too much of one and the puzzle feels too easy, too much of the other and the puzzle feels nearly impossible. Seyfert's corn maze is designed with this principle in mind. While some of the subsections appear a bit easier, other subsections are longer and very easy to get lost in. So while going through the maze, solvers have plenty of opportunities to feel like they're completely lost, or to feel like they're a maze-solving genius. We only discovered one downside to this particular maze structure. The only thing that I would say is a bit of a downside is because the maze is really like you have to be funneled through these 10 checkpoints, you keep accidentally meeting up with people at those checkpoints. And if other people, such as the ones we just passed, had kind of given up on the challenge and were just following the map through, it's kind of really easy to accidentally be spoiled. Like, as they walked past us, they're like, okay, we gotta go this way. And we're like, oh, well, we see you're staring at a map. We now know we have to go this way. So, unfortunately, that's the only downside that I would say of this kind of structure of maze. So while this maze was very well designed for individual groups of solvers to go through, it's important to consider the effect that larger volumes of solvers might have on that puzzle-solving experience. This wraps up my analysis of Seyfert's corn maze. Let me know your thoughts on this corn maze series down in the comments. I find it really interesting how different the first two corn mazes of this series were designed, even though I would describe them both as great corn mazes. Stay tuned for another corn maze video coming next week. Until then, have a great day, everybody, and as always, happy escaping.